Thank you, Dr. Bartlett. We're going to have Dr. Bartlett, you don't know this yet, by the way, but you're going to be on stage here in just a few minutes for a Q&A with Dr. Ardis. And so we do appreciate that. In your programs, there is a number, and if you're online, there is a phone number you all can call to, or not call, please don't call, just text. Text your questions, and if it's specific to Dr. Bartlett or Dr. Ardis, then put their name in there. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Ardis right now. I got to see him speak earlier this week, and let me tell you, this is enjoyable as well. Here's your clicker, sir. Thank you so much. Dr. Ardis.
Howdy, Frisco. I drove a whole 10 minutes to get here. My office is like literally less than a mile from here. It's pretty awesome to be here. Those lights are bright. I hope you can see me. Can you see me? All right, so I'm Dr. Brian Ardis. My wife Jane is down here. My team's down here. Everybody say hi. You might as well give Jane a round of applause. It's if you haven't heard my story. Her dad being murdered in a hospital in Plano. That was actually just referenced by Dr. Richard Bartlett not okaying the use of budesonide. It was that hospital, by the way, who murdered her dad in 9 days. In February 2020, before COVID hit Texas, and it was 3 months later. I was furious and angry and grieving. My wife didn't even have a chance to grieve because I was so upset. If you don't know the story, but in early May, I started hearing rumors about what was happening with COVID-19 treatments and deaths of Americans. And I just had an alert come up on my phone. And you ask my wife, this is not a joke, I do not and never have I ever watched the news. I can't. It's just too depressing. I can't watch it. I don't trust it. I don't like it. So anyway, I've just never done it. It was even worse during this period because I wasn't watching anything or paying attention to anything. I retired a year earlier from my practice. I sold it here in Frisco. And I had no intentions of life going where it's gone. But man, has my entire life changed as a result of this event. And I will not stop. All right, so they murdered my father-in-law. His name is Weldon. Rest in peace. 3 months later, I hear a report comes up on my phone, this alert from Apple News, and it says, more people today died in 1 day from COVID-19 in America than any other country in the world, or in America's current history from COVID-19. And I remember looking at it on my phone, thinking, why in this great healthcare system of America, supposedly the greatest industrialized nation of the planet, how in the world has America the most deaths in 1 day from this COVID-19? Why isn't it Southeast Asia? Why isn't it somewhere in South America? Why isn't it somewhere in Africa? If this thing's going around the planet, it's so dangerous. They don't have all the stuff we have medically. Why is it America? So I actually just looked up online to find out what are they saying about COVID-19 treating them, and I came across all of these press releases. If you remember in May, this is May 2020, if you remember in May, the epicenter for COVID-19 was New York. And so all these releases, all these press releases by CNN, Fox, ABC, all of them were covering all these press releases, wanting to know from doctors and insiders, what are you experiencing when you treat COVID-19 patients? And this is where the problem came up. They killed my father-in-law on the third day of starting ill-advised protocols against a virus. And I'm going to say it right now, and anybody can argue with me. For the rest of your life, the CDC says it's unwarranted to use antibiotics with a viral diagnosis. Antibiotics only treat bacteria. If you don't have a confirmed bacterial infection, don't put them in there. If they've only diagnosed you with a virus, they're unwarranted. CDC actually states on their website it can do more harm than good if there's no bacterial diagnosis. Well, that's what they did to my father-in-law. They diagnosed him with the flu and then put him on 3 antibiotics that day. One of them is called vancomycin, and by day 3, it caused acute kidney failure, which it's known to do in a percentage of people. And then by day 5, called us to tell us. Day 3, they called us to tell us an acute renal failure. Day 5, he was going unconscious because of water on his brain and the lack of oxygen in his lungs. And we weren't up there at the hospital. We got access that next day and found out that this drug had been given to him every day, and I called it out. Unsolicited by me, the second attending doctor, I asked her, as she walked in the door, I said, why is he on vancomycin? I already told the earlier doctor to get him off of it. When are you going to take him off? And she looks at the bag, who's been taking care of this guy for 6 days, and goes just like this, without me saying anything. I guess we could consider taking him off of that IV drip vancomycin because it can cause acute kidney failure. For 3 days, they've been treating this guy supposedly for acute kidney failure. And they know the drug they're pumping into him does that, which is ill-advised for a viral infection. Do I have a problem with that? I lost it. Eventually kicked out of the hospital. Security was called. I demanded them do several things before I left. They had not for 3 days given him anything to eat while he's on this mask, forcing air into him. And I said, you put him on a feeding tube and you make sure he gets nutrients into his body. I will agree to leave if you will agree to do that. This is on day 6. And they said they would do it. So I left. And they got him off of vancomycin. The moment I left, the docs came in, and you can ask my wife, ask her, did they hold true to their commitment to me that they were going to give him a G-tube and feed him? Nope. They immediately attacked her, said not to trust me, convinced the family not to feed him, and over the next 3 days decided on the 3rd day, with Dr. Ardis not being there, because I wasn't a direct descendant, I was married into him, they said they would not talk to me anymore. Then they said, we need to start palliative care. He's not going to make it. You know what palliative care is? Overdose him on morphine, which paralyzes your diaphragm and your heart and it stops you from beating. It's called euthanizing someone. And this was their attempt to cover up all the liability that they did. They were going to murder him versus changing and doing the things we already proved within those 5 days. Actually, it was just 2 days. We actually demanded them do certain things, and all of his breathing improved. And then they called that night and said, the hospital administrators and doctors said, we're not doing that anymore, permanently stopping those decisions we did today. Why? They didn't want it exposed that I knew life-saving changes to those protocols would occur and his life would be changed. Instead, they said, we're going to actually continue to just murder this guy. I have a problem with that. So fast forward now to May, 3 months later, and I'm listening to the news, and they're saying, we've never seen, the doctors in New York and the hospital administrators, we've never seen a respiratory virus ever do this before. When we start treating this COVID-19 virus, we start seeing acute kidney failure by day 3, 4, and 5, and the virus is now attacking the kidneys. Do you know, since February, 3 months earlier, every day what's been running through my brain, day 3, they called us to tell us it's an acute renal failure, only to find out there was a drug doing it for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, that they kept pumping into him and knew it. And then I hear in the media, tons of news outlets saying by day 3, 4, and 5, we're seeing acute kidney failure in all these patients. We've never seen a virus do this. Do you want to know why they said they'd never seen a respiratory virus do that? Because they don't do that. They never have. So then I wanted to know, are they treating everybody with vancomycin like they did my father-in-law? Are they killing them with the same drug? Are they pumping an ill-advised antibiotic into people with a viral diagnosis? How was my brain not going to go there? Only to find out vancomycin wasn't a listed protocol treatment for COVID-19. I didn't know that. I went to cdc.gov because I was sitting at home. I wanted to know, what's the treatment protocol? CDC.com says we do not have a recommended treatment protocol for COVID-19 that we've adopted. We have adopted the NIH's mandated protocol for COVID-19 treatment for all Americans hospitalized. So I clicked a link that hyperlinks to the NIH, and there it was, May 1st, 2020. NIH.gov's recommendations for all hospitals in America. This is your one and only treatment for COVID-19. Anthony Fauci. It's his name at the top. And it says we are using one drug and one drug only is approved to treat all COVID-19 Americans or infected Americans across the country. And that one drug is an experimental antiviral called remdesivir. For those of you who haven't heard me say it yet, if you can't remember remdesivir, you're going to tell everybody, any loved one that goes into a hospital, you are not going to treat me with remdesivir because I heard Dr. Ardis say so. That's all you're going to say. And when you get there and you're stumbling on your words because you can't remember the word remdesivir because, you know, it's made up, just remember it rhymes with your death is near. That's all you have to remember. And it's very true. So this is what I learned on this memo. Your death is near, remdesivir, just remember. It needs to be a t-shirt somewhere. I don't have one, but someone needs to make it. Or just wear it to the hospital and go like this. Not this one, okay? All right, so on this May 1st, 2020 memo from Anthony Fauci, he lays out only this one drug that's non-FDA approved at the time, never has been FDA approved to be safe or effective against any viruses. And then he quotes two studies. He says there was an Ebola trial last year where remdesivir was put in an Ebola virus trial in Africa, and it was found to be safe and effective against Ebola. Okay, this lady says she was there and it was killing them. All right, so here we go. I was not there, but I figured it out too in about 10 minutes that he was lying. So I clicked the link to find out anything about this drug. I was like, well, if it's safe and effective against Ebola virus, which is a virus, he's now saying we're going to use it during this novel new coronavirus. So I clicked the link and it goes to the New England Journal of Medicine's website. That study is still there. Oh, look, hey, there's a QR code right here. I want America to, y'all better put this on the screen. If y'all haven't learned one thing yet over a year and a half of me talking, my videos have gone around the world. When I said I wasn't planning on this, I was not planning on this. And when you hear Dr. McCullough speak, he says someone had to be the expert. Have you heard him say that? Like in every interview, he'll go, look, someone had to be the expert here to talk about the bioweaponry of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the vaccines and how dangerous they are. Someone has to do it. Something happened when I read this memo that made me decide there was nothing that was going to stop me from warning all of you that they're going to kill you in hospitals. Stay out of them. This is how they're going to kill you or your loved ones. And it's happening around the world still. So this QR code here you see on the screen takes you to our website, thedrardisshow.com. You put in your email, it gives you access to COVID resources. I just launched an entire new website this last weekend that gives you every documentation. It's all free, by the way. Please, just do it. Go get it. 67-page COVID-19 document exposing everything I'm talking about. A disease prevention cocktail is there. 4 proven nutrients that are proven to protect every cell in your body from oxidative stress. If you haven't figured this out yet, oxidative stress is the precursor to every disease state for any cell in your entire body. And guess what spike proteins do? And guess what SARS-CoV-2 does to your cells? It initiates what's called oxidative stress to start disease in the cell. There is a C19 disease prevention cocktail I put together because as hard as there are people at the top, evil people, who have no concerns or worries at all about putting in agendas and protocols and mandates that they know are going to maim you, cause life-threatening diseases, and kill you. There will forever be one guy who's going to tell you, we can do it better than them. We can thwart their agenda. I put my trust in God and the immune system he put inside of you, and whatever they created, whatever man created and puts inside of you, I will not sit back and not tell you there's a way to protect every cell inside your body at best it possible for the God-given immune system he created. If God is all-knowing and he knew what he was doing when he created you, and any of you think a man did it better, shame on you. There are 4 nutrients God put on this earth. In fact, you learned about them in elementary school. It's called the periodic table of elements, the basics of life that you require to live. Every plant, rock, human, it doesn't matter, animal. They all require these things for life to exist. Magnesium and selenium, they're on that table. Guess what's not on that table? Remdesivir. It's not even on there. It's not required for life. But every hospital is going to tell you, this is the only thing that's going to save your life. No, it isn't. Magnesium costs like $10 for a month's supply of a supplement. Do you know what it costs for hospitals? What they get paid to give you 5 days of a drug man created that is proven to shut down your kidneys and your liver in 30% of all of you in 3 to 5 days? Medicare pays out $2,300 plus for a 5-day treatment, and now they're bribing hospitals to select remdesivir and giving them a 20% bonus payout on top of that for all Medicare patients in America. And I've told everybody, the resources are on my site. You download these documents, you take it into the hospitals, and you say you are not using remdesivir. This CMS document, I know they're bribing you to poison my loved one or myself. My loved one or myself is not for sale. And you show them the CMS document. I'll show you, but I'll give you access to actually get those. So there are things that God put on this earth like magnesium and selenium. He put it in the dirt, and then your actual plants draw it up out of the soil. This is why you're supposed to eat veggies and fruits. The fruits develop from those minerals in the soil, magnesium, selenium included. They then go on to develop what's called vitamin C. Do you know that in January 2020, China figured out they could stop the COVID pneumonia? Go to orthomolecular.net. You can look at the research studies. China figured out that in 5 days, they could do high-dose intravenous vitamin C in all hospitals in China for COVID-19 patients and stop the entire pneumonia process and send them home. How many of you have heard that announced here in America? Nope, none. It was 25,000 milligrams, by the way, intravenously a day. Do not trust any doctor on the planet or in America who tells you you can't do more than 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C, you can't do more than 5,000 milligrams, you can't do more than that. No. They're lying to you. Ask any medical doctor you've ever met, and I have gotten to be introduced to a whole bunch of really cool ones. I've actually asked them, how much training did you get in med school? I've already seen the syllabuses because I applied to med school. I already went through these twice. So I said, how much nutrition treatment did you get? How many classes did you have on nutrition, diet? How many? In 4 years? Before residency? You're hearing it out here. 0. There is 0. So when you go to your medical doctor and you go like this, I have this cough. I heard this Dr. Ardis guy say that vitamin C, magnesium, and zinc are helpful. And this vitamin C was able to beat the COVID-19 crisis for pneumonia in China in 5 days or less, and everybody went home. And he looks at you and goes, supplements can be dangerous. They have side effects. You shouldn't use them. That's what they tell you. That's actually what they say. Trust me, I've heard it for 20 years from my own patients. They're like, Dr. Ardis, they said 200 micrograms of selenium is dangerous. Really? You could eat like 5 Brazil nuts. Are you going to get selenium at that amount? You know anybody to die of an overdose of Brazil nuts? No, never. I've never heard it. Ever, never once. Have you ever heard someone, this is a real question for all of you. How many people have you ever heard say to you, I cannot believe it, I just lost my loved one to an overdose of vitamin C? I'm glad you find the humor in this, but this is just how ridiculous the medical establishment is educated in nutrition, health, and healing. They are not educated in that. But I'm going to educate you. There's other people doing it. It's not just me. I'm just going to be bold enough to stand here and take it. Fact check me all you want. Threaten me all you want. I don't care. You killed one person and you messed with the wrong guy who spent 20 years helping people nutritionally heal. I can't help it. I don't know what happened. Any of my patients are even in this room. You know, I hardly ever did lectures. I just worked in my practice all day and just worked with families one-on-one. But something erupted when I read that Ebola trial. So let's go here. There's a clicker here. Let's see where it does. This is the trial for all this. Okay, here we go. I got 12 minutes. That big old clock. All right, here we go. This is the trial I opened in mid-May. This is the actual study. So what they did is they took 4 drugs called remdesivir, ZMapp, MAB-114, and a drug called Regeneron that you hear about right now. Dr. Richard Bartlett was just talking about monoclonal antibodies. 3 of the 4 drugs in this trial were monoclonal antibodies, except for one, remdesivir. All right, so I'm reading this study and I'm like, he just said on NIH.gov's website that all hospitals are going to be required to use this drug for all Americans. It's the only thing that's going to save us from COVID-19. It's the only thing we're going to treat. Hydroxychloroquine is bad. That's what he said on the memo. It's going to kill people. And this is what I read in the study. On August 9th, 2019, this study started in November 2018 and was published in December 2019. This is in August, just before COVID. On August 9, 2019, when 681 patients had been enrolled, the Data and Safety Monitoring Board, there's a safety board for human trials to determine are these experimental drugs dangerous or hurting or are they benefiting the patients. So, monitoring board conducted an interim analysis on data from 499 patients and on the basis of 2 observations recommended terminating random assignment of ZMapp and which one? Remdesivir. That was interesting. I was like, well, what was so bad about remdesivir? Because this guy, Anthony Fauci, just said it was found to be safe and efficacious against Ebola virus. We're now going to use it against this coronavirus. And there's this table that tells you what they found. This is what they found. ZMapp, look right below it, percentage of deaths, 49.7 of all people they gave it to with Ebola died. That's ZMapp. Look at the one next to it, remdesivir. 53.1% of all people died in that trial being given remdesivir. As a result of this information, the safety board pulled remdesivir from the study because over half of the people being treated with it died. It was the highest mortality rate of all 4 drugs. And then you go over to MAB 114, that was put in by DARPA, our own defense contractors. 35% of those died. And then Regeneron, you see it a couple of columns over, 33.5% of them died. Remdesivir was taken out of the trial because more people died and it was found to be the least effective drug. What did Anthony Fauci say? It was found to be safe and effective against Ebola virus in Africa. Was it? No. So I'm sitting there in my house and I'm like, holy crap, he's lying to all Americans. He could have picked any of the other 3 drugs. In fact, this is the NIH.gov, Federal Health Agency. I told you that MAB 114, that's a single monoclonal antibody, that was put in by DARPA, our own federal government. ZMapp was put in by our United States Department of Health and Human Services. They financed and put it in there. Why didn't he pick one of the 2 federally funded drugs in this trial that had a lower mortality rate than remdesivir? Can you not observe? I love when people ask me this. What are your credentials to speak on this topic? In the media, they'll say that. What's your credentials? And I go just like this. I can observe and I can read. That's exactly what I say. And then they'll repeat the question. No, I know. But what are your credentials? And I go, what more do you need? I mean, Galileo, for crying out loud, changed the whole world's view of the world by making an observation. And then he was destroyed by the scientific community and the church, put on house arrest for the rest of his life, called a bigot, a liar, blasphemous, because he said the earth is not the center of the universe, the sun is. And then he created a model. And he was able to prove that as the earth rotates around this light source called the sun, it casts a shadow on the moon. The earth's not flat, it's round. It comes from the shadow. And they called him insane. Because the church wanted everyone to believe what they were teaching, which was earth is the center of the universe. I don't know why they cared. Okay, so he was warning the public. He wasn't even warning them. He was just making an observation. Was it going to be harmful to humans to know that the earth wasn't flat? Was this going to kill anybody? Was it going to hurt anybody to know that the earth was not the center of the universe? Nope. I am not going to stop telling you that Anthony Fauci picked a drug he knew was the most deadly from a trial, then he lied to you, and still today is now bribing hospitals to use this deadly drug that he knew from the beginning was going to kill a whole bunch of Americans. And I knew first he lied. The second thing I wanted to know is, what did he find in that cohort study that he quoted in March, 2 months earlier, where he said the maker of remdesivir and the patent owner called Gilead Sciences. These are the 2 studies he quoted. Remember, I'm hearing in the media, day 3, 4, and 5, we're seeing such severe acute kidney failure we've never seen before by a respiratory virus. Oh no, he knew where it was coming from. Here's the next one. This is the cohort study in March 2020, 2 months before the mandate for remdesivir came out. This is Gilead Sciences. They decided to select 53 patients who have COVID-19, and they're from Japan, America, and Canada. And this is the conclusion of Gilead's own funded study of their drug. This is only in 10 days, by the way. This is 10 days. The Ebola trial was 28 days of drugging them with remdesivir, and they had 54% mortality rate. This was 10 days. So remember, you have to stay on track here. The chronological part of this is very important. December 2019, the Ebola trial publishes their findings. Remdesivir is proven to be the highest mortality rate of all 4 drugs. Over half the people died treated with it. 3 months later, March 2020, Gilead Sciences says, we're going to give our drug that we just gave to Ebola patients for 28 days and more than half the people died, we're now going to give it to COVID-19 virus patients, and we're only going to do it for 10 days. This is what they found. In 10 days, 23% had serious adverse events. The most common serious adverse events: multiple organ failure, septic shock. What's the next one? Acute kidney injury. Really? What are they saying in the media? We've never seen a virus do this before. And they're being told it's the only drug they can use to treat all hospitalized COVID-19 patients at this point. And they're like, we've never seen a virus do this before. Really? It ain't the virus. It's never been the virus. It's been this drug. All right, 8% had to come off of the drug because of worsening symptoms of liver failure, kidney failure. They couldn't even make it the 10 days and had to be taken off of it. You add up 8% and 23%, you're at 31%. I just had a vascular surgeon call me yesterday from Florida. I will not give his name. He's not ready. In the last month, young and old, everyone they've actually treated for COVID-19, he got a hold of my video. Somebody gave them to him about a month ago. And he goes, Dr. Ardis, it's exactly what is happening. And do you know what he said? 30% of all old and young they just treated died the same way remdesivir kills you. He called a meeting with the heads of the hospital to tell them we have to change the protocols. It's killing these people. You know what they told him? You have till X date to get your vaccine or you're fired. All right, and he's bawling on the phone. All right, so I knew those 2 studies were obviously not proving it to be safe and effective, obviously, right? And this is what made me so upset. I knew that he selected a drug that he knew was going to cause acute kidney failure and death, and 30% of all people he gave it to. So I started warning the public that Anthony Fauci was about to become, it was actually what I termed Anthony Fauci's genocide. I have since said, this has been 17 months later since May 2020 when he made this the mandated protocol, and it's still being used today in hospitals. I actually think he's the greatest serial killer in American history based off of just the last 17 months. We watch movies, documentaries. We are enthralled with serial killers. How can people kill people? Ted Bundy, holy cow, what did he say right before he died on death row? That it could have been upwards of 100 women? Really? We only knew about 33. And we think this guy was insane. And we want to study the mind of these serial killers. There's no one greater than this one in American history. None. And he needs to be held to account, and I will not stop until he does. And he is. And I have to give love to a whole bunch of doctors. Dr. Peter McCullough, American hero. Dr. Richard Bartlett, when I found out I was speaking here, I called him and said, you have to come. Because he's treated in the last month alone with these monoclonal antibodies that had a lower death rate for Ebola virus. Remember, that was against Ebola virus. This is not that virus. He's finding 100% success rate with 1,200 patients. And I looked at him 3 weeks ago when he's relating this to me in person. It's on my site. You can watch the whole interview. It's a part of my patient advocacy resources. Because when doctors are telling you there's nothing you can do, your loved one's on a vent, that is a flat out lie. Richard Bartlett just told you what to do. So I tell everyone in the country, when your lying doctor, unethical doctor who's given up his entire Hippocratic oath, looks at you and said there's nothing we can do for him, they're lying to you. And Richard Bartlett, I say, play the video for him because they know exactly what they're lying about. And then he tells you how to do it. I love men and women who were trying to protect and preserve lives. I love them all. I'm not the only one. But this message, for some reason, appeared to be I was the only one that saw this and decided to make it known around the world. This is how they're about to kill you all. So this is 5 months later. This is the France study. So for people who are like, I don't think remdesivir is causing all this acute kidney failure, liver failure, to me. And I'm like, oh, really? France, 5 months later in September? Oh, just so you know, in May 2020, Anthony Fauci asked our federal government to buy up all the experimental drug called remdesivir from Gilead and don't share it with another country until the end of 2020. Why did America have 500,000 plus deaths, more than any other country in the whole world? We were only doing one thing everyone else wasn't. We were drugging them to death, venting them to death, because they're shutting down these individuals' kidneys with a known acute kidney failing drug, liver failing drug that then causes pulmonary edema mixed in with all the viral load inside the lungs. You are drowning them to death, having to vent them, and you're killing them. No one else was doing this. So France, you have to understand, we had a quarter of all the deaths of the entire world from COVID-19 at the end of 2020. It was 550,000 dead. The whole world had 2.2 million dead. How is it? America's got 4.5% of the entire world's population. We had 25% of all the deaths. It doesn't even make any sense. Every other country did better than we did at beating COVID. All right, so France decides in September 2020, let's just try this remdesivir drug. We're going to give it to 5 people with COVID-19 in France, in Paris. And this is what they found. They were going to do it for 14 days. 14-day treatment, 5 people. Remdesivir was interrupted before the initially planned duration in 4 of the 5 patients. 2 because of their liver enzyme elevations to 3 to 5 times normal, which is acute liver failure. So they had to stop the drug. Just so you know, they checked their liver and kidney functions before they gave them remdesivir. Okay? Within 14 days, they had to be stopped because their liver failure was going up. That's called ALT on a blood panel. And then 2 had to come off because of renal failure so severe they had to have kidney transplants. You think France adopted using remdesivir? Only 1 of the 4 survived all 14 days. 2 of the 5 died. This is your drug of choice. All right, so that was in September of 2020. Now fast forward to 5 months ago only. The Associated Press decided to fact check me about 2 weeks ago. And they actually said, we want to fact check you on your claim that we see going around the world in social media that remdesivir causes acute kidney failure. And I was like, really? Of all the things I've said, I mean, you could have picked that I said Anthony Fauci is the greatest serial killer. Like, you could have picked that one. They didn't pick that one. They picked the one I've been staring at, reading about, researching, getting every piece of documentation, not my own, from all around the world for 2 years now. Okay, go ahead, fact check me. I was so excited. So I gave them all this stuff. And I told them if they didn't publish this stuff, I would hold them just as complicit in all deaths of Americans from here on out as I do Anthony Fauci. And I mean it. All right, so World Health Organization 5 months ago in April, someone goes in and does what's called a reporting odds ratio in the World Health Organization's database. All this stuff's on my site, but y'all should memorize this right now. Just kidding, you're not going to do it. All right, so remdesivir and acute renal failure. Amazing, that's the title. Right? They want to fact check this? Just read the first sentence. Okay, good. From the World Health Organization. So ridiculous. All right, but here we go. Inside, what did they find? So what they did is they found that around the world there's 4 primary drugs being used around the world to treat all COVID-19 patients. Okay? And it's listed down here. So they have, let's see here. Well, the highlighted part is what I want you to focus on. So the reporting odds ratio, what they did is they took these 4 drugs. It's remdesivir, being treated in America and used in America. Hydroxychloroquine they're going to compare it to, which, you know, we've been told in the media is deadly dangerous. And then they pick 2 other drugs that they're going to compare it to, and they're going to see how many times does remdesivir get reported with acute kidney failure compared to hydroxychloroquine treating COVID-19 patients, and how many times does acute renal failure show up in these two other drugs that I didn't know a whole lot about. Didn't matter, we weren't using them here or suggesting them here. But this is what they found. Reporting odds ratio compared the number of acute renal failure cases reported with remdesivir with those reported with other drugs prescribed. And it lists them: hydroxychloroquine, tocilizumab, and lopinavir. And then they combined the terms acute renal failure, and it yielded this. What they found was it had a read the top, reporting odds ratio of acute renal failure with remdesivir was 20-fold the other three drugs. 20 times. Now, there's something very significant in here that you guys need to know. They wanted to compare all people that had COVID-19 at the same level of viral load and disease process. It's the most significant part of this abstract. They wanted to know equally sick SARS-CoV-2 virus patients in the world being treated with 4 drugs, and what's the reporting of acute renal failure. This is just 5 months ago. I would really like to think that my videos went around the world and somebody was like, let's fact check this guy with the World Health Organization database. That's what I'm hoping. I don't know. I was just hoping. Because I was the only one saying it. But the key to this entire abstract is this. It's not that it's 20-fold greater than the other 3. No one on the planet who has any intellect at all can actually say to me that the virus itself causes acute kidney failure. Why? They just compared the same level of SARS-CoV-2 infected people. They only compared the 4 drug treatments to see what happens. The reporting odds ratio was 20-fold for remdesivir alone. So is it the virus? All these people had the virus. Was it the virus? No. It was the drug. It's the only thing that's different. Everyone else had the virus, and there's a 20-fold increase of this. Now, you guys aren't going to see it in this presentation, but I found something super disturbing, and I'm about to tell you. I just told Richard Bartlett backstage, and I'm going to tell you because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I just took you through the chronological order of how we know remdesivir is dangerous. I have flat out said this is going to be the number 1 cause of death of all Americans. Not COVID-19, it's the treatment for COVID-19. We're at 720,000 dead Americans, people, in 17 months, more than any other country. And what are we all doing in common? Remdesivir is the only treatment choice. But this is what was really awful to me. I'm a part of this thing called C19 group. McCullough's in there. They all supply all this stuff to me, all these articles, research studies, and whatever, PowerPoint slides from around the world. And one got posted a few days ago, about 5 days ago. It got posted in the group, and it was titled Extrapulmonary, so outside of the lungs, disease processes of SARS-CoV-2 infection. So outside of the lungs, extrapulmonary disease processes of SARS-CoV-2 in the body. And I started reading the abstract. It's all a part of our resources now on the site. And I'll reference it and pull it up and give it to anybody who wants it. But I'm reading the first 3 sentences of the abstract, and it states, this is a published study, by the way, on NIH's website, and it says, there are other organs in the body that are damaged outside of the lungs, which includes acute liver failure and acute kidney failure with SARS-CoV-2. And this is not a joke. When this becomes so obvious to you what the cover-up and the lie is, I went just like this. Oh, no. I already know what's doing it. We already know what's doing it. It was never the virus. Now, I know this. At least I think I do. So I actually look at the abstract. I don't even finish reading the summary. When I saw liver failure and acute kidney failure, I immediately did this. I slid up all the way to the end of this huge study with all these references and citations, and I wanted to know who funded it. There is 10 references to the NIH funding this review. So then I was only looking for one thing, and it wasn't the NIH, by the way. This was on the NIH's website, so I figured they were in on it. But I went to conflicts of interest, and I couldn't believe what I saw. they allowed a panel of individuals from different departments of the NIH, cardiovascular department, kidney department, allergies and infectious disease department. All of them are in on this, and they're all discussing and outlining all symptoms and destruction of SARS-CoV-2 virus in your body, and they are going to publish it for the world to know this is what SARS-CoV-2 does. I wasn't even shocked. I was just pissed that a member of Gilead Sciences who makes remdesivir was on this panel to actually define what organs are damaged by SARS-CoV-2 infection. And then I slid all the way back up. When this came into my email, I thought it was a brand new thing, so I thought it just happened. And I was like, there's no way that this is new. So I slid all the way up to the top. It's dated July 10th, 2020. In May 2020, the NIH and Anthony Fauci said, we are using one drug and one drug only, remdesivir, made by Gilead Sciences. Proven to be safe and effective, it was not. And then he turns around and tells our federal government to buy all of it and only use it on all Americans in hospitals with COVID-19. Do not give it to any other country. July 10th, 2 months later, the NIH and Gilead, a member of that pharmaceutical drug company that's making the solution, the one and only drug going into all Americans being treated, is now being allowed to contribute to define for the world what all organs are damaged by SARS-CoV-2. Does anyone see how disgusting and evil this gets? They allowed a drug maker who's been selected to be the only drug maker to take their side effects and list it as the infection side effects. I would consider that a conflict of interest, and I wouldn't trust any of them. July 10th, 2020, look it up. Extrapulmonary disease processes of SARS-CoV-2. You should be as disgusted as I am. I'm still disgusted. Oh, and just so you know, I just have to show you this. I'm out of time. Great, it's at 0. No, it's great. People want me to keep going? Y'all can keep adding time. I don't know how this works, but I'm at negative 5 seconds now. Oh, wait. Okay, now it's positive. Oh, hey, 10 minutes. Oh. Everyone needs to see this chart, and everybody at home needs to actually take a picture of this. It is on my site now, but you've got to take a picture of this. Every hospital in America, right now, when you go in there and you go like this, I don't want remdesivir, even though I can't breathe, I think I got COVID. I don't want remdesivir, I've seen, this is what they say, thousands of you. I don't want remdesivir, I've already seen Dr. Ardis' videos. I want ivermectin or something safer. Every hospital is saying this right now. Ivermectin is not an approved drug treatment for COVID-19. That's what they say. I guess I'm the only one at home looking for this stuff because I found it and no one else knew it existed. It was like 3 weeks ago. Couldn't believe it. This is last updated July 8th, 2021. Guess what the source is, what website this lives on? NIH.gov. Any search engine on the planet, it doesn't matter if it's Google, they haven't even decided to censor this one yet, it was working last night. Type in NIH table 2E in the name of this table. The NIH, since May 2020, is the only organization telling every hospital in America what you're going to do with COVID-19 treatment. And it's always been the first drug on this list, remdesivir. Amazingly, the Associated Press wanted to fact check my claims that remdesivir causes acute kidney failure. It's amazing. This is on the NIH's website. Look, it lists remdesivir first. And on the right, it says adverse events of remdesivir. ALT and AST elevations. Now, this is disgusting, by the way. In the France study, the liver enzyme activity in 14 days or less, remember there was 4 that couldn't make it the full 14 days, their liver activity enzymes went up 3 to 5 times going into acute liver failure, so dangerous they had to come off the drugs. This second bullet point side effect of remdesivir is ALT and AST elevations. And then it goes on to say, it's okay if you allow those to go up 10 times normal. Really? France doesn't have as many deaths as we do, and when they saw it go up 3 to 5 times, they were so alarmed they pull them off. I don't think any degree of liver failure is beneficial to someone you're trying to save. I don't see it. In the adverse events section of remdesivir, it's mentioned 3 times acute kidney failure and how remdesivir's delivery system does it. It's on the NIH's website. And they want to fact check me. They tell you, it's on here. It's ridiculous. Oh, look, it's right there. The 4th bullet point, drug vehicles, SBECD, which has been associated with renal and liver toxicity. Renal, by definition, is kidney, by the way. Isn't that great? So why is this chart important? Because on July 8th, 2021, the NIH lists ivermectin as the 2nd drug approved for treatment. And it gives you the adult doses right below remdesivir. Everyone on the planet needs to get this chart, download it on their computer, print it out, and like anybody getting ready to go have a baby at a hospital, you need to have this bag ready to leave. And you need to have this chart in there, because when you walk in there and go, you're not giving me remdesivir. I've seen Dr. Ardis' videos, and they say this still today. When you say, I want ivermectin, they'll go like this. It's not an approved drug. Oh, yes, it is. And you can say to them, pull out the chart and go, stop lying to me. All right. Now, the NIH published this 3 months ago. In the last 3 months, how many times have you heard that ivermectin is for horses? I just want you to know that NIH is not a veterinarian organization. It is for humans. It's actually designed to produce health information for humans. It does not say at the top of the table, characteristics of antiviral agents approved or under evaluation for COVID-19 in horses. And adults right here with the dosaging, it doesn't say adult horses or mares. It doesn't say any of that. It's just humans. So don't let them lie to you. Make sure you're armed with this document, because I promise you, just like the doctors in early May and June and April of 2020 who were saying we've never seen a virus do this before, it's attacking the kidneys and shutting them down, they had no idea that it was the drug they were being mandated and threatened with their license that they would lose if they didn't use it. They didn't know. They don't know this stuff either. I was on a Zoom call the other day with 100 medical doctors who never knew this existed. And they were like, finally, I have something to arm myself with. And you know what my response was? You're welcome, from the chiropractor. That's what I said. Has the NIH let the media know since July 8th that ivermectin is on their website listed just as approved as remdesivir? Have you heard that? No. In fact, I wouldn't give remdesivir to an animal. That's how dangerous this thing is. I wouldn't give it to humans or any animals. Everybody needs to have access to this chart. I hope y'all took a picture. You have resources to my thedrardisshow.com, because we make sure you get it. Now, why would these doctors look at you and go like this? Ivermectin's not approved, when it actually is. And why would they go, we're going to use remdesivir instead? You have to know, it gets even worse. Medicare patients who are going into hospitals have already been sent a memo from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.gov. And this is the article. This is the second one I tell everybody to print out and put in their birthing bag to go to the hospital. Be ready. CMS.gov is giving a 20% bonus payout if they'll just select remdesivir as the treatment over any other treatment in hospitals. The average payout right now for Medicare treatments, Medicare-aged people in hospitals to get or give remdesivir treatment for 5 days, the payout is $2,300 plus. Then they're saying we will pay you 20% more if you just use these codes. Look at this. NCTAP claims are those that are eligible for the 20% add-on payment under this section. ICD-10 PCS codes for remdesivir, and then it starts to list all the codes. If you'll just write these on your hospital claim forms, we'll give you a 20% bonus payout if you choose remdesivir. Notice ivermectin's not up there. And just so you know, we already have the data. Do you know that since January 1st until the end of September, Medicare has paid out for written prescriptions of ivermectin to Medicare patients in America a total of 142,000 prescriptions at an average cost of $24 a day, or $24 a prescription? If you did a 5-day treatment protocol like the NIH says you can do with ivermectin, take $24 from Medicare payment and multiply that times 5. You're less than $125. Ask me why the hospital administrators are going like this. Docs, you're only to use remdesivir. Why? They're getting almost $3,000 if they do, with an additional 20% payout. Follow the money, and I've told everybody, take this chart, the CMS.gov chart, print it out, and then I want you to walk up when you walk in to be admitted, and you're going to hand just like this. Here is the NIH.gov chart that shows ivermectin is an approved treatment for COVID-19. Print out the CMS.gov document saying they're paying you out 20% more. You hand it to them and you say, I can't breathe, but my life is not for sale. Nor is your loved ones' lives either. Okay, Dr. McCullough's done a fabulous job on this. I just need to give him some kudos. These shots are extremely dangerous. The FDA created an internal document. You may have seen this already, slide 16. This is October 22nd. Sorry, how do you go back? Oh, here we go. On slide 16 in their internal document, the FDA listed these known side effects were going to start being reported when the shots come out in 2 months. This is October 2020. And this whole meeting was about determining vaccine safety and effectiveness. Sorry, I got to go back here so you can see it. This is the FDA's internal division, CBER, vaccine safety and effectiveness, how we're going to monitor COVID-19 shots. October 22nd, 2020. I didn't know this. This is a huge day for the FDA. Do you know, October 22nd, they make this presentation. They list out 110 diseases. The CIA's in here. All right, so they actually determined, the FDA says we're going to monitor all vaccine injuries, and we're going to actually look for and follow one database to determine how safe and effective these shots are and warn the public and make sure they're not dangerous. And then they pick these side effects that they're going to be looking for starting December 14th to see are any of these being reported. Guillain-Barré syndrome, being paralyzed, ascending from the legs up, half your faces, paralyzed possibly for life. Notice that death isn't the first one. It's off on the right. That should always be number 1. But being paralyzed is their number 1 listed. Transverse paralyzed, paralyzed from the waist down forever. Encephalitis, brain inflammation that leads to autism and all Asperger issues, period. Convulsion, seizures, stroke. They know all these are going to be reported. This is what they knew before they gave you the shots. You know what else is amazing? You know that group, CMS, that's actually giving a bonus payout to every hospital for 20% more just to use remdesivir? The FDA said, we're going to trust one database that is not voluntary. They didn't choose VAERS that they were going to review every 7 to 10 days. They chose this one. Look at the red highlighted line down there. This is slide 15. FDA plans on using CMS data to do rapid cycle analysis every 7 to 10 days. This is in October before the shots ever came out. Have you ever seen a report? Nope. Hold up. But we have the data for Texas. I just got this last week because I told Thomas Renz about this slides 15 CMS data review. This is just for Texas. And I told him, you got to go look at the CMS database because you have a whistleblower. Just real fast, this applies to Texas, and I'm standing in Texas. But this applies worldwide. We already have 9 states that we've done all this for. That list of side effects on slide 16 that the FDA said they were going to be looking for being reported to CMS, he had the whistleblower in CMS take all of those side effects that were bullet pointed, plug them into CMS data, and he wanted to know from January 1st, 2020, all the way until they get their COVID-19 shot, Medicare patients only. How many of these people have these reported slide 16 issues in their medical records before they got the shot? Back to January 1st. This is not voluntary. This is medical reporting from their doctors. And they excluded anybody that had those slide 16 issues in their medical records. Then they took from the day they got the shot and they went out 28 days to see how many of those slide 16 side effects occur in Texas. Look at this. Within 28 days, death occurred to 6,558 Texans, Medicare age, within 28 days. Look at the one at the bottom titled paralysis. These are people that didn't have parts of their body paralyzed before in their medical records. 65-year-old and older Medicare patients. There's now 1,700 of them paralyzed just 4 weeks after getting the shots. You have Guillain-Barré up there, Bell's palsy, cerebral vascular event 1,082 strokes in the brain or blood vessels rupturing in their brain, blood clots in their brain. Look at cardiac arrest with myocardial infarction. You've heard of myocarditis. This is the greatest threat to all of you. Death, obviously. Stop the heart, stop the life. But you add cardiac arrest in 500 people who never had a history of heart attacks before in Medicare services. 501 had it within 28 days. Add myocardial infarction, heart attack with a blood clot. You're at 2,755. Add those together. That's over 3,200 people who never had cardiovascular issues before in Medicare in Texas who did within 28 days. I just want you to know, in those 9 states that we've completed, VAERS data shows about 14,000 deaths post-vaccine reported voluntarily into VAERS data. You add these 9 states only, are the only ones we're done with right now. It's over 31,000 dead Medicare patients within 28 days post getting the shot. This is actual documented data. The FDA said in October 2020 they were going to be reviewing for your safety. I'm Dr. Ardis, and there's going to be a panel.
Thank you, Dr. Ardis. That was awesome. That was awesome. I'd like to bring Dr. Bartlett back out. Woo! How many people are enjoying this? Thank God for these 2 brave souls right here. You guys can feel free to have a seat. We have some questions from the audience. Most of them have come in internationally. Here, I brought you a water, Dr. Ardis. And so I'm just going to go through a few questions. You guys dance with each other and decide who wants to answer it. This first one specifically was for Dr. Bartlett. Discuss monoclonal antibodies and then possible adverse reaction, long-term effects, as in reduction of natural immunity or a second COVID exposure.
So we have one known absolute risk with monoclonal antibodies. It has a lot of protein in it, and protein is what you can be allergic to of all the different types of things in the body. And so monoclonal antibodies, we're worried about an anaphylactic reaction. And I can tell you in the Odessa, Texas monoclonal antibody infusion center, we had 1 case of an allergic reaction. So we have the medicines there to treat it, and that person did fine. But in 1,200 patients that we infused in 1 month, 1 anaphylactic reaction, 1 allergic reaction. You can be allergic to foods, you can be allergic to any medicine. And so that's the one risk that we watch for and we're prepared for.
Okay, very good. And do they work on Delta variant?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
They don't discriminate. And so I'm for equal treatment of all humans. Thank you, God. Everybody's priceless. The monoclonal antibodies are an overwhelming success. And so we have just, well, I mentioned that the hospitals, there's 3 hospitals in Midland, Odessa, and they've all had their numbers of COVID patients in the hospital cut by at least 60% in 1 month with the monoclonal antibodies and early treatment. The word is out in West Texas where I live about budesonide, aspirin, antibody called clarithromycin, and monoclonal antibodies. And so people are being treated, and people are, the hospitals are being emptied.
That's fantastic. Thank you for your work on this, by the way. The next question is, I have a friend in the hospital. He's had a tracheostomy, I think that's spelled wrong, and is on a ventilator. He's been in and out of the hospital for a few months. Is budesonide still an option?
As long as someone's breathing, there's hope. And I'll give you a few examples. There's a retired state senator from Georgia who's become a friend, Senator Krotz, and his elderly wife had a tracheostomy in the ICU on a ventilator. for over a month, and the doctors had told him repeatedly, you know, there's no way she's going to get off the ventilator. There's no way she's going to get out of the ICU. There's no way budesonide could help. And this is a gentleman with 12 years as a state senator who in the course of this, after we start talking, he calls the governor of Georgia. And the doctors are still stiff-arming him and saying, no, we can't do that. We will not do that. Well, he finally prevails and gets his wife some budesonide. And I said, ask them what the percentage, what the odds are of him getting off the ventilator. They said it was impossible. She's off the ventilator. She's out of the hospital. And that's for Mrs. Kratz. So his beloved Phyllis. And so there's an example that when you're told that it's impossible, if you have an inflammatory disease, which is what COVID is, it's a super inflammatory disease. And it also triggers clotting because one of the inflammatory chemicals that's released is called thromboxane. And it's no mystery. If doctors would study, they would know why we're having heart attacks, strokes, pulmonary emboli, deep venous thrombosis in the legs with COVID, because there's a chemical, one of the cytokines that's released with COVID is called thromboxane. You don't feel any different when you have more thromboxane in your bloodstream, but you're in a hypercoagulable state. Easier to make a blood clot than normal. And so if you're in a prolonged car ride and you have COVID, or you smoke, which increases your chance of clotting, or you do everything right and you still are at an increased risk of having a clot. In fact, 14.1% of COVID patients that are in the hospital end up with clots. And so that's why aspirin is a part of the protocol outpatient. A penny a week, that's pretty cheap.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you. Wow. The questions have started to pour in. Should I get budesonide just in case? Or do I have to have symptoms before I get it?
Well, over 20 million Americans have asthma. And budesonide is generic because it's been out for decades now. And so you have third graders coming home from school with their rolling backpacks that are healthy. They've just done PE. They've done all the things. They played on the monkey bars on the way home. They're totally healthy. And they're going to go home and they're going to get their pre-mixed, pre-measured, generic budesonide, and they're going to twist the top off on their own because it's so safe, and they're going to squirt it in the little reservoir of the nebulizer, and they're going to smoke the peace pipe with the nebulizer treatment for 3 to 5 minutes while they're watching Scooby-Doo, and they're not going to think twice about it because the number one preventive measure for asthma is budesonide, or is an inhaled steroid. Inhaled steroids are the number one preventive measure, most effective preventive measure for asthma, to protect from an asthma attack. Over 4,600 die from asthma attacks in the United States every year. We don't want one asthma attack. And so we should be on preventive measures if someone has asthma. And by the way, in New York, when they had the first month of COVID, over 30,000 people died. They looked at the top 10 comorbidity list. Guess what was not on that list? They had diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, but they didn't have asthma. There's a clue. Why? Well, they're on inhaled steroids for a preventive measure many times, most of the time. What is budesonide? It's an inhaled steroid. And so my answer is that you can be on budesonide as a preventive measure. And by the way, budesonide comes as a nose spray over the counter. And so it's that safe that the FDA said, we don't even have to have this as a prescription anymore. The brand name was Rhinocort, but the generic is budesonide. And so I have told congressmen and senators and others that could make a difference that they should make this over-the-counter medicine that's in a nose spray to prevent allergic rhinitis symptoms and over-the-counter medicine to stop the pandemic. I haven't seen anybody do it yet, But can budesonide be used proactively? It is as a steroid nose spray for preventing allergic rhinitis. It is being used preventively for people with asthma. It is being used preventively for people with emphysema, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Could it be used during a pandemic preventively? Could we or should we be giving this to people who are at increased risk in nursing homes? I think that, most people in West Texas and in Texas have common sense. We could say, hey, that's probably worth $3. I'd say grandma and grandpa is probably worth $3. Hey, if it was used in mass, boy, that would really be like a wet blanket on a fire. And so I think the same principle makes sense.
So in the grand scheme of things, anybody with COPD or any other higher risk should try to get a prescription for budesonide and have it ready? Or should we just go to Walgreens and get the nose spray?
It's a prescription.
Right.
And I don't tell people to use nose spray in a nebulizer machine. But the nose spray is over the counter. So you have to talk to a doctor or a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant. There is a website called budesonideworks.com, a third-party website. It's not mine. I don't own it or operate it. But there is a lot of valuable information there. And there is a providers tab. And so you need to talk to your doctor first. Your doctor has to... if you have a relationship with your doctor, that's the place to go. I don't want to interrupt the doctor-patient relationship. Nobody should, including the state. Now in China, there is no doctor-patient relationship. The state says it, you do it. And it's a broad brush. Whatever they decide, everybody will be treated the same. That's socialized medicine. But in the United States of America, not the United Socialist States of America. In the United States of America, we have patient rights and we have doctor-patient relationships. So start there. But if you don't get a satisfactory answer, you could do like that one gentleman that was in the hospital. You can say, you're fired, and get a new doctor. Or you could go to get a second opinion. If there's ever a place of opinionated people, it's doctors. And so if you don't like what you hear, go talk to another doctor. You'll probably get another opinion. And there's also budesonideworks.com, which is telemedicine doctors.
Thank you so much. All right, this one is for either one of you. How is the virus transmitted? If by mouth, is it reasonable to assume masks can be effective as prevention? I have not been vaxxed. But is the vaccine the reason that the cases are going down? Who wants to take that one?
We had masks for 1.5 years, and the hospitals were on diversion. We had masks for 1.5 years. We had social distancing. We shut down schools. We closed schools. We shut down businesses. We bankrupted small businesses. How did that work? I think a month ago I was hearing that all the hospitals were on diversion. But then there are things that do work, and the evidence is there. In just 1 month, hospitals being emptied with monoclonal antibodies and the effective early outpatient treatment that's now being promoted with budesonide, and you mentioned another one that some people say is a horse medicine. Of course, penicillin is given to horses too, and I think I give that to humans. So this is so ridiculous, the arguments that come out. And also, I touched on this for a second, but I just can't let it go. If they told you that they're going to mandate, that they're going to require you to roll up your sleeve and get last year's flu shot, you would say, you're crazy. But the exact same recipe for another highly contagious, rapidly mutating virus is being pushed from 1.5 years ago. And let's just think about that for a second. March of 2020, Iceland studied the genome of every coronavirus case that they had in Iceland, and they had 243 mutations in March of 2020. By now, we probably have tens of thousands of mutations to this. And you're going to tell me you got it right? That's not what the evidence shows in Israel, where, in my opinion, when I look at the numbers, it looks like 4 out of 5 people in the hospital in Israel, where 85% vaccination rate is, have been vaccinated. Or at the monoclonal antibody infusion center where I am, where half the people that come in there roughly have been vaccinated and they're angry that they're there. So I think we have different tools. We were told by a fellow named Anthony Fauci in January 2020 that we should shelter in place. We should basically kind of, hide until he comes up with a vaccine. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking, this is a guy that's been in charge of coming up with a vaccine for HIV for 40 years, and he's failed over and over again. Who picked him to pick a winning strategy for the world? Who picked him to come up with a vaccine when he's failed over and over again? As a matter of fact, I think it was around January 2020 where it came out that they thought they had a promising vaccine for HIV in South Africa, and the word came out that it had failed. And so I'm just saying there's more than one way to do things, and I think we've put all our stock in masks, which are made for, surgical masks are made for surgery. And I've done a lot of surgeries, and we do a lot of procedures in the ER, and we wear a mask because it will protect a patient with an open wound from getting a bacterial infection. Bacteria are larger than viruses. And so a surgical mask is made to protect patients with open wounds from bacteria. And I've seen some pretty funny memes of different kinds of masks used for chemical warfare, for painting a house, for all these things, but you're going to wear this little flimsy thing that's to catch bacteria, and you're going to say that's going to protect the world from a virus? I think the evidence is out there, and common sense prevails. And so how did it work? How did that work for us?
Can I use some common sense for a second?
Please.
Okay. I would like to ask Richard Bartlett a question. He's the medical doctor, not me. So his training's really different than mine. So here we go. Dr. Bartlett, the American medical complex, the American pharmaceutical complex has been around for over 100 years now. Have they found a cure for the common cold virus yet?
So up until January 1, 2020, when someone would come in the emergency room where I'm working and they had a viral illness, we stabilize the patients. We give supportive care for viral illnesses. That's been the strategy that has worked. You do supportive care. And for the common cold, it makes perfect sense to use over-the-counter medicines and do supportive care.
So let's ask Dr. Bartlett, have they wiped the cold viruses from the planet?
They will never wipe the cold viruses from the planet.
Okay, stay there. All right, now, what type of a virus is cold viruses?
Coronavirus.
Ooh. Hold up. Do you think that there was this novel already cold virus that came out, started spreading around the world January 2020, November maybe 2020? Do you think, miraculously, there were 4 companies in 7 months that figured out how to actually wipe a coronavirus they've never seen before from the planet in 7 months with a vaccine?
How's that working? How's that working?
They haven't done it before, they haven't done it now, so just let it go, use some common sense.
So you've touched on something there. So coronavirus, COVID-19, which we no longer have. We have Delta variant, a different virus. 99.9% of what we're seeing now is Delta variant. So if you look at the spike in Texas, we're basically done with this surge of COVID-19 in about February 1, 2020. And then we had, remember, society was opening up again. Everybody was saying, man, praise the Lord, we beat this for about 4 months. And then a new thing presented itself out of the blue. Maybe COVID-19, maybe Senator Rand Paul, who's a doctor, who's brilliant, was right when he had, let's give it up for Rand Paul.
Yes.
He has been able to face off with Fauci, and I haven't yet. He hasn't responded to my emails.
So Senator Rand Paul has a stack of papers in his hand in the Senate floor, and he's waving those in front of the whole world under Fauci's nose, and Fauci's turning red, and Fauci's on his heels. He's stuttering, he's stammering. He's caught red-handed about gain-of-function research to make coronaviruses more deadly. Why coronaviruses were picked is that they're highly contagious. Common cold is very contagious. We've all known that. So if you're going to make a weapon of mass destruction, pick something that's highly contagious and then make it more dangerous. That would be gain-of-function research. And so where did COVID-19, where did SARS-2 come from? Wuhan. And what's in Wuhan? And so that's not the only place. It is not a new idea. Bioweapons are not a new idea. We had envelopes of white powder that were mailed to the Capitol to hurt people that had anthrax in it. That's a bioweapon. Bioweapons are not new. After 9/11, I did training on how to take care of people that were victims in the ER of bioweapons or chemical weapons or nuclear attack. These are not new ideas. And so coronavirus has been around forever. It'll still be around forever, Dr. Ardis. But
there's not a vaccine for that?
SARS-2 wasn't on the planet, and I don't think they found a bat with SARS-2 out in the natural habitat yet. And so I don't think they found any animal that was a natural reservoir for this deadly disease before we got hit with the pandemic. And so I'm just going to ask, where did Delta variant come from? Where did some of these other variants that they're going to offer us come from?
Can I ask a question of you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we were together in Colorado Springs, and what I was learning from him about the monoclonal antibody unit out in West Texas, that's why I wanted him to be here. I was like, you've got to go talk on this because there is a way better than remdesivir in hospitals. Everybody needs to know it. So you got to come tell the world. But one thing he talked about was this new Delta variant. And this guy, not me, I'm not in hospitals treating people, this guy is. He's an ER doc for years, saving people's lives from the beginning. He has seen SARS-CoV-2 viruses in hospitals. He knows how their symptoms display themselves. And this guy, who's treating them every day, is looking at me in the face and he goes, this is not the same virus. Their symptoms are different. Can you tell us what you observe is different?
Well, what is happening with Delta variant, they've proven that it's hitting younger people. It's hitting people that are not the elderly, that are the infirm, that are immune compromised. This is hitting healthy people. And that was happening last year with the SARS-2. But this new wave is hitting people who you would not expect to be in the ICU on a ventilator. And so there's a concern. I have a personal concern that if there was gain-of-function research and they made a bioweapon, who's to say they only made one? That's just my personal concern. You can ask Anthony Fauci, who's lied about a lot of things, by the way, and so I don't know what he's going to say. But I'll just give you an example. He did say that you only have protection for 3 months if you have natural immunity. He said 3 months. And he didn't offer any science. He didn't say you only have 3 months of protection if you had COVID because of this randomized controlled trial. I didn't hear him say that. But Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis did the unthinkable. They did science. And they have been drawing blood every month on patients who have recovered from mild cases of COVID, and they see high levels of antibodies and protection for over a year now. So kudos to Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis for doing science. I guess there's still a place for that. But, you can go down the list. Fauci said that budesonide for COVID was a placebo. Lie. According to Oxford University, they did the principal trial, the STOIC trial, and they said This is overwhelming evidence. We had to stop the study early because it's unethical to withhold a potentially life-saving medicine from someone who's in a study getting a placebo that could die. So they stopped the study for just that small crowd. But we're withholding it in major hospitals in the United States from people because we can't use a nebulizer in a hospital that has negative pressure isolation rooms. We can't use it for a patient that's in the hospital that has ARDS because they came in originally with COVID, but they have ARDS now. There's no science behind what they're saying. It's just a strong opinion, and sometimes people are wrong. And so you saw a video of a gentleman who is alive today, coming home tomorrow probably, because he received a treatment that the doctor said, absolutely not. We will not do it because it will not work. Budesonide will not work against ARDS. And he would tell you otherwise. And thank God he's going to be able to tell you otherwise.
Yeah, thank God. I want to be conscious of your time. You've got to get back to the hospital, by the way.
I want to be clear that every time he says ARDS, that's not my name.
There's missing an I in there. Yeah. It's
acute respiratory distress syndrome.
So, last question for you. It's 11:24. You've got to get a move on. I'd like you to stay out with me for a bit longer for questions. Can you talk about transference from others that got the vax to the unvaxxed? I'm convinced this happened to me from a vaxxed masseuse. Still having severe pain and stiffness in my hands. Numbness is gone. I've been on high doses of vitamin therapy for a couple of months.
I'm going to tell you, I believe that we have had economic warfare. We don't have to think too hard about this. President Trump had locked horns with China, and we had sanctions and tariffs, and we were doing well. He was putting America first. And even in the mainstream media, we had reports of thousands of attempts a day to hack our power grid in the United States by enemy states. That's cyber war. We've seen all kinds of evidence of little clues of things like that happening. What was your question?
The question is about shedding. He didn't, or she didn't call it shedding, but
when you're talking about war, one of the strategies is to divide and conquer. And I believe there's a concerted effort to turn Americans against Americans right now. To turn the unvaccinated against the vaccinated and the vaccinated against the unvaccinated, when we all know we have family members that are vaccinated and unvaccinated. We need to stay united. The United States. We need to stay the United States. And so my message as far as that answer goes is that we need to be careful where to put the blame. I think we can blame people who are withholding life-saving medicine from our loved ones, and we need to stand up for our loved ones. We need to hold governments accountable for this disaster that's been unleashed. And then we had a second wave unleashed, maybe. And so there are people who have a lot of blame. Fauci was held accountable for just a moment on the Senate floor by Rand Paul, and I hope that justice is served.
Yes, yes. And I saw that video is going viral now, so that's fantastic. Well, I want to be cognizant of your time, but everybody, Dr. Richard Bartlett, let's give one more round of applause. Thank you so much. So there are a ton of questions that have come in. I'm not kidding, Dr. Ardis. We're looking at over 150. So
you've got 2 minutes and 20 seconds. 2 minutes, 20 seconds.
That's lying to you. We're actually going to go a little bit longer.
Might as well just turn that off.
We did, just so everybody knows that that is in the audience. If you're looking at your schedule and you're fixed to a clock, we're going to just let God lead this. And Everybody send a prayer up for, thank you, for Colonel Allen West's wife, who is sick, and so he's not going to make it today. So we're bumping the schedule back about 15 minutes. That's why we can ignore that clock. Well, that's one reason. All right. So there was another question here that I think is directly to you. Shoot, I've lost it. I just had 6 more come in. So
let's make one up.
Yeah. So no, this question was about, I've gotten the vaccine. What do I do to heal myself if I've now learned about the vaccine? Can you answer that?
Yeah, you're going to put this on the screen. Well, it's already up there. But those at home, this QR code actually takes you to the DoctorArtistshow.com. Put in your email, and you're going to see this C19 disease prevention cocktail. It was actually designed to actually thwart the agenda of the vaccines when they inject them into you, to reverse those disease processes. That's why I created it. This is for those vaccinated, those actually being shed on or transmitted, or transmission occurring from those who are vaccinated onto those who are unvaccinated. So you want to get that. There's 4 nutrients in there. It gives doses for children, adults, teenagers. And then inside of this same resource, just so you know, there's a podcast called The Steel Truth with Ann Vandersteel, if you don't know who that is. They run every night, Monday through Friday, 9 to 10 Eastern time, I believe. At 10 o'clock every Wednesday, there's now a Healing Intel show with Dr. Ardis. And on the September 16th, you can look it up. On September 16th, I did a show. And it was all about addressing the 5 major organ systems that are damaged by the virus, the treatments in ICUs, if you survived, the vaccine injuries that you receive, and those who have been shed on by those vaccinated. That resource is with this information, the disease prevention cocktail, and then I go into neurological issues. Your brain is being damaged by the stuff in these shots. It's already proven. I put up a list from the FDA of nerve damage known going to be caused by these shots, and they're already being reported. But memory loss, dementia, focus, all kinds of stuff is being reported back to me. So we have specific products, even outside of my disease prevention cocktail, that actually will help repair damaged neurons faster using God's immune system He put into you. And there are different supplements in the disease prevention cocktail, just a few of them. For those of you who have heart symptoms, I actually address what those are and what you're experiencing, and then what you're going to use outside in addition to the disease prevention cocktail to address those. I've been doing this for 20 years. Oh, I'm primed. Then the liver is an issue. So we have liver support products and how you know it's your liver with what symptoms. I can't tell you how many vaccinated people or people after ICUs are writing in saying, I have extremity swelling still. All I've been talking about for a year and a half is how these drug treatments and these vaccines now are going to cause damage to your kidneys. If you have water retention in your body and there's parts of your body swelling, your kidneys have been injured and your body's retaining water and you're not peeing it all out. Ask me if I know how to repair kidneys. I've been doing it for 20 years. There are specific nutrients to do that. God put them on the earth to keep you healthy. So all of these are there. Go to the DoctorArtistshow.com. Go to the disease prevention cocktail with it. Look for Healing Intel 3 show, September 16th. And that's the one where I address how to do that. Look, I'm not going to let them kill you. I'm not okay with that. I actually trust God put me in a position of boldness and educated me, had clinical experience treating 17,000 patients for the last 15 years since 2004, and watched these people's lives from 60 different countries improve where their medical professionals told them they were going to live with that condition forever. And that wasn't true. I don't believe it's going to be true now. So if I can extend the information I think I've been blessed with to help people around the world, I want to do it for the rest of you now.
Is it the same repair? Basically, not prescription, but sort of protocol, whether it's I've been damaged by remdesivir, I took the vaccine, or I had COVID or was around somebody with COVID, now the repair, is it all the same?
No. So the Healing Intel 3, that's actually the show where I actually analyze the 4 to 5 different organs and what your symptoms are you're complaining about and how you know that's that organ. For example, so many people have been treated with remdesivir and a year later who survived. Even medical doctors are telling me, I can't walk upstairs, I lose my breath. That's heart failure, damage to your mitochondria in your cells from remdesivir, poisoning your kidneys, liver, and heart, or damage from the spike protein from COVID-19 while you went in there anyway. The disease prevention cocktail is 5 things now, to protect every tissue in your body from damage of spike proteins, viruses, poisons like drugs, and the vaccine poisons, including ionized radiation. They figured out how to get ionized radiation at Chernobyl's explosion in Russia to pull cesium-137 radiation out of your body in 4 weeks, 64% of all ionized radiation, and no drugs did it. Guess what did it? Apple pectin powder from apples. And then Fukushima had their leak at their nuclear power plant in 2011. It's still leaking all over Japanese individuals. They saw a huge 40% spike of all people living around there, regardless of ages, 2, 4, 8, 10, 12, in adulthood, all developing thyroid cancer within months of the leak and exposure. So they went and looked at what the scientists in Russia used around Chernobyl, because no medications or therapies were working for these cancerous nodules in these kids' thyroids in adults. And they found out that Russia was using apple pectin powder, and within 4 weeks, 700 milligrams twice a day, they could remove 64% of all ionized radiation in those kids' and adults' bodies using that. 2 months later, 100%. And they were preventing cancers from all these people in Japan and Russia. They have not found, as of yet, that there is ionized radiation inside these vials of vaccines. I don't care what chemical they put in there. It's not ionized radiation that I'm aware of. If it's graphene oxide, if it's polyethylene glycol 2000, which is in Pfizer and Moderna, and is a known chemical to punch holes in your blood-brain barrier and bring the ingredients in a vaccine into your brain to damage your neurons. That's what that chemical does. And then the Johnson & Johnson shot has what's called polysorbate 80. It does the same thing. Well, if those chemicals are in there and apple pectin powder can bind to ionized radiation and draw it out of your body, you don't think I'm going to try as fast as possible to get that product inside of you to bind to those dangerous chemicals? So yes, there's the disease prevention cocktail all of you need to be on. I'm trying to thwart their agenda, which is to harm and kill you.
Yes.
There are additional organs in your body. I just mentioned if you're still complaining after a vaccine or after being treated that you have leg swelling, arm swelling, my rings don't fit anymore, you are retaining water. The one major organ system in your body that removes water is what? Your kidneys. I have just exposed to y'all all the ways in which we know these treatments cause kidney failure. So your kidneys have not recovered, that's obvious. And I tell you in that Healing Intel 3 show that I did, all the things you need, and it's only 2 additional things to repair your kidneys on top of the disease prevention cocktail to get all that water out of you. And I'm just going to say it. This resource, the Dr. Ardis show, which I was not planning on doing, I retired and I thought I was done. I am about to launch a platform on this site. And I'm going to go one disease process, one symptom after another, and I'm going to combine myself with leading experts in those fields who naturally cure those conditions. And I'm going to go one by one, and they're going to live on this site. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. Can I just tell you what it's going to be? It's going to be called 10 for 10. It's going to be 10 minutes. This is not a joke. I've already got a cardiologist, multi-author, who's going to help me cure all of you with plaque in your arteries naturally in just a few months. And we're going to do a 10-minute episode on it, on how you do that. He's already been doing it for years. We're going to help you reverse congestive heart failure. We're going to help you reverse hypertension. Do you want to know why I'm going to do this? We're going to do a 10-minute video with all these experts, and I'm going to line up tons of them on my site. And Dr. Ardis is going to sit there and give you his recommendations with this expert in his field. It doesn't matter what field they're in, medical doctors, what their license is. I'm going to combine with all of them because I have promised the world, the pharmaceutical industry was going to pay for taking my father-in-law out of this world.
Yes.
And now I'm going to expose every one of their lies. Every single one of you who are told you have to live on high blood pressure for the rest of your life, you've been lied to. Every single one of you told you had plaque in your arteries and you need statin drugs to reverse it, you've all been lied to. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set up a platform on my site, a whole page. It's just going to be tons of symptoms, diseases, one after another. And we're going to start with heart disease, losing weight, dietary stuff, and then I'm going to go all over the place with kids, all kinds of stuff. You watch. 10 for 10, 10-minute video of us two conversing on the topic and how you heal it. Then there's going to be a PDF you download that gives you the entire protocol, dietary and supplement-wise, what you're going to do to reverse it all yourself. It's going to be, listen, it's going to be 10 minutes for $10. It's less than a copay to go see your specialist for those conditions.
Awesome.
Just so you know, that's what you have to look forward to in the next month.
Let's hear it for Dr. Brian Ardis, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Can I do one thing real quick?
One thing real quick, yes.
Yep. I need Michelle Roughton to come up here, please. I am on a mission to preserve lives. The biggest obstacle right now is inside of hospitals. Doctors, administrators are being bought off to kill your loved ones with ill-advised protocols. This is Michelle Roughton. Say hi.
Hello.
Michelle Roughton, if you go to our actual website, thedoctordis.com, thedoctordisshow.com. Just do the link. Okay. Michelle Roughton now has created an advocacy program. How many years have you been doing patient advocacy?
About 6.
6 years. How long have you been a neonatal nurse?
I've been specializing in 2 and under for 19 years now.
Can you tell the world why it is that we're collaborating to actually introduce everybody that they have life-saving patient advocacy when they don't feel like they have the empowerment or the confidence or constitution for loved ones to battle on their loved ones' behalf in ICUs? Can you tell them what you're hearing real quick and then why it's essential that you guys are needed?
I think everybody has heard by now what's going on in the hospitals, especially if you're in this crowd or watching. But they have their protocol that was handed down by CMS, which is Medicare and Medicaid, that they're getting a 20% increase in payouts if they use remdesivir or other drugs that really have very poor data and are not very safe. The doctors are towing the line, the nurses are bullying, and so are the doctors. They're bullying and discriminating against people who don't want remdesivir, who are unvaccinated. They are denying them basic treatments like IV fluids and nutrition. They are ignoring medical power of attorneys. They are not updating next of kin. They are isolating these patients, not allowing visitors in. And this is not okay. And Dr. Ardis and I we're on a mission to turn around for everybody and give everybody the help that they need, the guidance they need, the support they need to stand up for their loved ones. And if we have everyone in the hospital with family members saying, enough, I'm not okay with this, you're not killing my loved one, they're going to have to turn around and change what they're doing because it's unacceptable.
So at the Dr. Ardis Show website, you go to contact us right on the homepage. If you want to get a hold of her group and you anywhere in the world or in America are struggling to get through to the medical professionals to change the protocols and save your loved one's life, you go through the Dr. Ardis Show site. Someone tried to hack their system and didn't allow any emails to get through this entire last week. They even were routing phone calls from her advocacy group, and someone was answering saying Michelle Roughton and her team no longer do this. So she texted me the other night, and within 1 hour, I said, we're doing it through our site. We're going to be sending it here to a different email, and now they're getting populated again, 12, 20 requests every hour. We are out on a mission to stop them from hurting you. So please use this as a resource. If you don't think you can do it, and you can't stand up to the tyrannical, criminal kidnapping of your loved ones in hospitals, Michelle Roughton is here and her group to represent all 50 states to help step in where you can't.
Thank you, Dr. Ardis, very much. Let's give a big hand for Dr. Ardis. Our next speaker will be our infamous Senator Hall, who will be sharing a word and just